The sun was barely rising over the Pacific, washing the windows of Naval Command South Bay in pale gold. Inside the main briefing hall, everything looked perfect. Chairs in tight rows, screens humming softly, and the scent of polished wood mixing with burnt coffee. A dozen officers stood ready, straightening collars and muttering checklists under their breath. Then the door swung open with a hard metallic snap. Rear Admiral Marcus West walked in, every inch the showman. His reputation preceded him. Loud, sharp, and famous for the kind of humor that made people laugh even when they didn't want to. "Gentlemen," he barked, pacing across the stage, "if your boots shine brighter than your results, you're in the wrong Navy." The room chuckled on cue. That was West's specialty, control by performance. At the far end of the table sat a man in a plain regulation blue uniform. No ribbons, no pins, just a small name tag that read S. Chen. He didn't react to West's words, didn't even look up from the mission brief displayed on his tablet. His presence was quiet, too quiet for a room trained to stand at attention. West noticed him, circled once like a shark smelling calm water. "Well now," he said, his tone dripping with amusement. "And you are, what exactly? Commander of the printer?" Laughter rippled across the room. Chen didn't respond. He simply adjusted the angle of the screen, eyes fixed on the digital map glowing in front of him. Calm, steady, untouchable. Before West could fire another line, Chen spoke, his voice even, unhurried. "Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know." The officers blinked. The Admiral smirked. And then, without missing a beat, Chen returned his gaze to the board. To most, he looked like a visiting analyst, maybe a logistics officer from Intel sent to sit quietly and observe. No medals, no swagger, but his posture said something else entirely. Shoulders set, chin leveled, composure like tempered steel. Lieutenant Daniel Reyes sat beside him, a young operations officer still new to this kind of pressure. He leaned over politely, sliding a folder toward Chen. "Updated sonar readings, sir. New coordinates are inside." Chen gave a brief nod and scanned the pages. His eyes moved with precision, not reading, calculating. Reyes caught the flicker in his expression when he reached one section. A faint red notation, Sector 4. Sonar variance, unresolved. Chen tapped the corner once with his thumb, made no comment, then closed the file. Across the table, Captain Nora Hayes watched quietly. She'd seen that kind of stillness before. The kind that didn't come from fear, but from discipline honed over years. Chen wasn't nervous, he was watching, measuring, cataloging every move, every tone, every flaw. Meanwhile, West's voice filled the air again, commanding attention with gestures more suited to a stage than a command post. "Now this here," he said, pointing to the holographic grid, "is how we'll secure Sector 4. Smooth, simple, efficient. Any questions?" Nobody spoke. The silence wasn't respect. It was survival. Chen finally looked up, eyes calm as water. "Admiral," he said, "there's a blind sonar pocket just north of your relay line." West frowned. "Excuse me?" Chen gestured toward the map. "Your line curves too close to the reef channel. It distorts signal returns. If you're running drills there, your radar will miss anything smaller than a patrol boat." West chuckled. "Commander, I think my staff knows how to read a sonar graph." Chen said nothing, only tilted his head slightly. The kind of silence that makes men check their confidence twice. The lieutenant beside him shifted nervously. Hayes across the table studied Chen again. She'd seen this kind of calm under fire once before, during a classified rescue off Okinawa years back. The same tone, the same measured breath before impact. West tried to move on, but something about Chen's composure unsettled him. The more he joked, the quieter the room became. The laughter faded into the hum of the projectors. At that moment, Chen raised his hand slightly and pointed toward the digital map. "Sir," he said, "you might want to double-check your encryption channels before your next drill." West's jaw flexed. "And why is that?" Chen's tone remained level. "Because one of them, Theta 7, was compromised 2 years ago." The words landed like steel. Half the room turned toward him. The other half froze mid-breath. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, with the faintest smirk, West said, "And who exactly decided that, Commander?" Chen's gaze didn't waver. "I did." The silence that followed was absolute. No one in that room knew it yet. But before the day was over, every man who'd laughed at Commander Chen would be reporting to him under a new title they'd never forget. Fleet Commander. The laughter had barely faded when the first vibration rippled through the briefing room. Every tablet and terminal on the table lit up at once, the glow turning the officers' faces pale blue. A shrill triple tone cut the air. Base alert. Rear Admiral West frowned, annoyance flickering across his face. "What the hell?" Before he could finish, the main display snapped from polished graphs to red static. Words scrolled across the screen in sharp white letters. Priority Intercept Relay. Alpha Secure Link Drop. The hum of conversation vanished. Chairs scraped. Keys clacked. Lieutenant Reyes leaned over his console, voice tight. "Sir, the signal's originating from the Pacific Sonar Grid, Sector 4. West barked. "Reboot the feed." Chen didn't move. His eyes stayed on the flickering red map, expression unchanged. "That won't help," he said quietly. Every head turned. West spun toward him. "Excuse me, Commander?" Chen stood slow and deliberate, the same calm presence he'd carried since the moment he walked in. "You're not dealing with a system error," he said. "You're watching an old wound reopen." Reyes frowned, confused. "Sir, you mean a breach?" Chen nodded once. "Theta 7. Legacy encryption. The line you never shut down." West's voice rose. "Are you saying we're being hacked during my briefing?" "No, Admiral," Chen said evenly. "I'm saying your security was never sealed to begin with." A low murmur swept the room. Disbelief, irritation, unease. Fingers darted across touchscreens. Red icons multiplied. The sound of typing filled the air like rain. Captain Hayes spoke for the first time, her tone measured. "Commander Chen, how exactly do you know that protocol?" He met her gaze. "Because I wrote the original version before someone decided to simplify it." Silence. Every motion froze. West's smirk faltered for the first time that morning. "You're telling me you—" Chen stepped closer to the tactical board, cutting him off with quiet precision. "You're blind in one sector. Someone's using your dead channel as a doorway. If you don't close it now, that red alert turns black." Reyes's monitor flickered. "Sir, he's right. Data's leaking through the relay chain. Same node structure as Theta 7. West's temper cracked. "Who authorized this man to speak?" Hayes answered before Chen could. "Apparently the network did, sir." A sharp spark of static burst from the speakers, a metallic screech that made everyone flinch. Then for 3 seconds the lights dimmed. When they returned, half the grid on the main screen was gone. Chen's voice came steady through the dark. "That's your confirmation." West's jaw tightened. "Then fix it." Chen didn't argue. He simply turned to Reyes. "Run a bypass through the relay stack. Isolate every active node and start logging internal ping variants. You'll find your breach where the timestamps desync." Reyes hesitated, glancing at West. West said nothing. That was answer enough. Within seconds, the young officer's fingers were flying over the console. Lines of code streamed past in glowing blue. "Found it," he muttered. "Old access tag, unlisted source. God, it's been live for months." The projector updated automatically. One single red dot blinking in the corner of the Pacific grid. Chen leaned closer. "There's your ghost." West exhaled slowly, tension fighting the reality settling into his expression. "You're telling me a ghost line just hijacked my network?" "I'm telling you, Admiral," Chen said. "You invited it when you ignored the people who designed your locks." The room stayed silent long enough for the hum of the cooling fans to sound like wind. Finally, West managed, "So what do you suggest?" Chen's tone didn't change. "Shut down everything above clearance delta. Move communications to cold channels. Then pray whoever's listening hasn't finished downloading your fleet routes." Reyes swallowed. "Sir, it's spreading. The signal's replicating through backup nodes." "Cut it," West snapped. "It won't matter," Chen said. "The door's open. You can't close it from this side anymore." Hayes straightened. "Then from where?" Chen's eyes shifted toward the far window, the distant sea barely visible under the rising sun. "From the source." He grabbed his notepad, drew 3 sharp lines across a blank page and turned it toward them. A rough map, hand-sketched and exact. You've got a sonar blind spot right here. That's where your breach started. West stared at the sketch, then at Chen. How do you know this so fast? Chen met his eyes. Calm, unflinching. Because, Admiral, he said quietly, I've seen this exact pattern before. And last time, it didn't stop until someone sank a ship. The room fell into total silence. Somewhere beyond the base's horizon, a storm was already forming. Not on the radar, not in the sky, but in the ranks of command itself. And before the next dawn, every officer would have to choose who they truly followed. By nightfall, the storm outside had quieted. But inside Naval Command South Bay, tension still hummed like a live wire. The day's chaos had left the corridors silent. No laughter, no routine footsteps, only the rhythmic tap of a few exhausted officers still at their posts. Lieutenant Daniel Reyes sat alone in the dim control room, his eyes fixed on the sonar grid glowing faintly across multiple screens. The blue lines pulsed like veins across the Pacific, stretching from Okinawa to Guam. Most readings looked normal, but not all. There, the anomaly. The same ghost signal Commander Chen had warned them about. Reyes leaned closer, fingers racing across the keyboard. He initiated a deep diagnostic sweep, one layer deeper than protocol allowed. At first, everything appeared fine. Stable pings, regular frequencies, no packet loss. Then small distortions began to appear. A few milliseconds off here, a tiny desync there, the kind of details most analysts would overlook. But Reyes remembered Chen's words. You'll find your breach where the timestamps desync. And now he had. He ran a trace, watching the data spiral through loops of encrypted channels, down into an old relay buried under a stack of obsolete systems. Theta 7. His stomach dropped. The same line Chen had mentioned that morning was still active, alive, and transmitting. Slowly he magnified the signal logs. Outbound traffic. Continuous. Someone was reading their systems in real time. He grabbed the comm handset. Operations, this is Reyes. I need Commander Hartman now. Minutes later, Commander Cole Hartman entered the control room, his expression grim and half awake. You'd better have something solid, Lieutenant. Reyes pointed to the screen. Sir, Theta 7 isn't just open. It's bleeding data. Hartman's jaw clenched. Bleeding to where? Reyes zoomed in. The target address resolved into faint alphanumeric strings, ghost markers bouncing off offshore frequencies. It's cycling through a mirrored node somewhere east of Okinawa. Whoever's behind it, they're masking through an old relay line that should have been retired years ago. Hartman leaned in. Who authorized you to run a deep scan? Reyes hesitated. Commander Chen told me to keep watching, sir. That got Hartman's attention. Chen? Yes, sir. He said the breach would show itself after dark. For a long second, neither spoke. The only sound was the hum of machines and the faint static of open frequencies. Hartman straightened. Wake the Admiral. Within 20 minutes, Rear Admiral West stormed into the control room, eyes burning with sleep-deprived anger. You drag me out of quarters at 0100 for another ghost story, Lieutenant? Reyes swallowed hard. Sir, it's not a story. He pointed to the live screen. It's here. West's gaze followed the red blinking node crawling across the digital map. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then his voice dropped. Tell me that's not Theta 7. It is, sir, Hartman confirmed. We traced outgoing data packets to an external relay. The encryption matches base communication signatures. West turned toward Reyes. How long has this been active? Reyes checked the logs. At least 6 months, sir. The Admiral's expression hardened. Who the hell was on comms when this thing was supposed to be decommissioned? Before Hartman could respond, the control room doors opened with a soft, metallic hiss. The sound alone silenced everyone. Commander Chen walked in. Still in uniform, eyes steady, voice even. No need to look, Admiral. I already know who left it open. West turned. You again. Chen moved closer to the display, scanning the grid with precise, methodical attention. The relay wasn't decommissioned because someone rerouted its failsafe. That's why it never registered as inactive. Reyes frowned. You mean it's been acting as a live backup channel? Chen nodded. A back door. Hidden under the label of redundancy. Hartman leaned forward. So what do we do now? Chen's tone didn't change. You lock every output feed above clearance delta, then isolate the relay hub before it replicates. Once it forks, you lose the route entirely. West's temper finally snapped. You seem to think you're still in charge here, Commander. Chen looked at him, calm but firm. Then act like someone who is, Admiral. The room froze. No one spoke, not even Hartman. The weight of those words filled the air, heavy as steel. West's jaw worked silently, his authority cracking under the quiet of a man who didn't raise his voice because he didn't need to. Chen turned to Reyes. Shift to Omega-3 protocol. Full lockdown. I'll oversee the encryption manually. Reyes hesitated, waiting for confirmation. West finally muttered, Do it. Within moments, the base lit up again. Screens flashing blue, status lights switching, data lines reconfiguring. The sound of the network isolating itself filled the room like a heartbeat. Chen watched it all without blinking. His reflection glowed against the red and blue lights. Calm, unshaken, and entirely in control. No one in that room could see it yet. But the breach wasn't their only problem. What waited on the other end of that signal would test not just their systems, but their loyalty. The clock had just passed 2 in the morning, and the command center glowed in the cold light of its own machinery. Officers moved fast, eyes fixed on screens filled with cascading code. The sound of keyboards was constant, the air thick with focus and fear. Commander Samuel Chen stood at the operations table, sleeves rolled up, eyes locked on the main display. Behind him, Admiral West hovered near the door, silent now, the weight of the breach finally breaking through his pride. Lieutenant Reyes, Chen said evenly, confirm isolation on channels Bravo through Delta. Confirmed, sir, Reyes replied. But the signal's duplicating faster now. It's branching. Hartman frowned. Branching where? Reyes zoomed in on the relay schematic. It's jumping nodes, like it's predicting the cutoff before we do it. Chen's voice dropped. Then it's adaptive. West exhaled sharply. You're telling me this thing can think? Not think, Chen replied. React. Every pair of eyes turned toward the glowing Pacific grid. Red lines flickered and shifted like veins of light, spreading through the sonar network faster than the crew could lock them out. Sir, Reyes said, panic creeping into his tone, it's using our own calibration data to bypass the encryption. Chen didn't move. He simply reached for the console and began typing. The rhythm of his fingers was deliberate, confident, mechanical, the kind of muscle memory born from years of doing this under pressure. After a few moments, he spoke quietly. Hartman, run a signal trace on 3 frequencies below the master channel. Look for anything repeating at 4-second intervals. Hartman gave a quick nod and began typing. Got it. 3 signals, all identical. One's bouncing off an offshore relay near Okinawa. Reyes blinked. That's within our operations grid. Chen's gaze stayed fixed on the map. No, that's within someone else's. The Admiral took a slow step forward. Who? Chen turned to face him. Whoever's been using your blind spot. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the monitors. Then the comm unit on Reyes's desk chirped. A priority transmission alert. Sir, Reyes said, eyes widening. Incoming message from Pacific Command encrypted on civilian emergency frequency. Patch it through, West ordered. The static cleared, revealing the voice of a technician from a coastal relay station. Panicked, breathless. This is Relay Post 79. We've got a civilian cargo vessel broadcasting. Distress. Call sign Prosperity Star. No response from bridge crew and its transponders looping under Theta 7 frequency. West's head snapped toward Chen. That line again. Chen's tone was calm, but there was something colder under it now. They're using your compromised channel as cover. Whoever hijacked the grid isn't just watching. They're moving. Reyes leaned closer to his screen. Coordinates place them 90 nautical miles east of Okinawa, sir. Chen nodded once. Then that's your breach manifesting in real time. Hartman's hand tightened on the edge of the table. You think they're smuggling data through that vessel? Chen didn't answer immediately. He stared at the slowly blinking node on the main display, the one still pulsing red on the edge of the Pacific. I think that ship's the reason this breach exists at all. The Admiral's voice broke through the silence. You're saying this was planned? Chen's eyes didn't move from the screen. Admiral, nothing this coordinated happens by accident. He turned to the room, speaking now with quiet authority that made even the senior officers stand straighter. Alert the drone wing. I want reconnaissance over those coordinates within 20 minutes. Begin encryption shift to Omega-3 for all active channels, and move communications to cold relay backup. Reyes hesitated. Sir, that's a full command override. Chen nodded. Then override it. West took a step forward. Hold on, Commander. You don't have authorization for that. Chen turned to face him. His tone never changed. Still calm, still level. Then you give it, Admiral, because in 10 minutes we either intercept that signal or lose it for good. West's lips tightened. Pride fighting reason. Then he finally gave a small nod. Do it. The control room came alive. Orders echoed across comm lines, drone launches initiated, data streams rerouted. For the first time since the breach began, the chaos moved with purpose. Chen stood at the center, watching the screens shift from red to blue, his reflection framed in the flickering light. To most, it looked like command under pressure. But behind his calm eyes, there was something else. Recognition. He had seen this pattern before, as the first drone images began to stream in. Grainy visuals of the dark ocean below. Reyes turned from his station. Sir, we're picking up motion near the vessel. Multiple heat signatures. Chen's gaze narrowed. Then it's not just data they're carrying. The room fell silent again. Every officer staring at the growing image on screen. A massive cargo ship drifting through darkness, its deck half submerged in fog, its beacon flashing faintly through the waves. Chen leaned closer, eyes sharp. Bring the feed to main display. The projection expanded, the sound of the sea filling the speakers. Somewhere deep in that static, a faint tone pulsed like a heartbeat. The exact rhythm of Theta 7, Chen whispered, mostly to himself. It's not over yet. The drones were already en route, but none of them knew what they were flying toward. Not just a ship in distress, but a signal born from the very ghosts of command. And before sunrise, someone would learn exactly what kind of man Commander Chen truly was. The operations room felt colder now. The overhead lights had dimmed for night protocol, leaving the rows of consoles glowing blue and white. On every screen, the same image flickered. A massive cargo vessel drifting through the black water, motionless except for the faint sway of its hull. Lieutenant Reyes's voice cracked through the quiet. Sir, Drone Alpha 1 has visual confirmation. The Prosperity Star's running lights are off, no visible crew topside. Commander Chen stood behind him, hands clasped behind his back, eyes steady. Thermal? Negative human signatures, sir. Only scattered heat pocket, maybe machinery. Hartman leaned closer to the display. That ship's not derelict, it's masking. Chen nodded once. Exactly. West crossed his arms, his tone sharp with fatigue and defiance. You're assuming too much, Commander. For all we know, it's a relay glitch. Chen didn't answer immediately. He walked toward the screen, studying the flickering feed. The vessel's hull marked with faint scorch lines, containers stacked unevenly. If it were a glitch, he said softly, it wouldn't be transmitting through an obsolete military frequency. West's voice rose. That line again. You keep blaming our systems. Chen turned his head slightly, cutting him off without looking. Because it's your system that's bleeding, Admiral. The words hung in the air. No one else spoke. Then a sudden ping broke the silence. A new feed, live from Drone 2. The camera zoomed across the ship's stern, cutting through the fog until something sharp came into view. A black-painted access panel, edges glowing faintly with residual heat. Reyes frowned. Sir, that's not standard civilian tech. Hartman adjusted his headset. Run a thermal overlay. The screen shifted to infrared and the shape of the panel flared orange-red against the hull. Behind it, a pulsing glow, rhythmic, mechanical. Chen stepped forward. That's a relay transmitter. They built one directly into the ship. West muttered. Impossible. Not impossible, Chen replied. Intentional. Reyes looked up. Sir, signal activity's increasing. Bandwidth spiked through Theta 7, frequency rising. Chen's voice stayed calm. They're offloading data. West slammed a fist against the table. Can we jam it? Chen shook his head. If you jam it now, you risk corrupting the feedback loop. The whole network could crash. Then what do we do? Chen's gaze never left the screen. We intercept. Quietly. Hartman blinked. Sir, with what? Those drones aren't equipped for interdiction. Then we send something that is. The room went still again. Everyone looked toward him. And that was when the next line of orders came out, calm but heavy. Activate Echo Wing. 2 interceptors, no external comms, no broadcast signatures. Reyes hesitated. Sir, Echo Wing's a ghost division. Chen looked at him. Then tonight we bring ghosts back. The command center erupted into motion. Technicians keyed in override codes. Hatches opened on the far runway, and floodlights burst to life across the tarmac. Through the narrow window, the silhouettes of 2 small aircraft shimmered beneath the fog, their engines rumbling awake for the first time in months. West's voice softened, almost disbelieving. You can't authorize a covert wing without... Chen turned to him fully, voice quiet but absolute. Without command? No, Admiral. Without purpose? Never. The tone left no room for argument. West said nothing. Within minutes, the drones fed back telemetry. 2 interceptors launching low over the bay, engines whispering like shadows. The entire room fell silent as Chen monitored their course. Steady. Perfect. Deliberate. Reyes whispered, Sir, do you think whoever's out there knows we're coming? Chen didn't look away from the screen. If they don't yet, he said. They will soon. For a moment the feed blurred. Static across the ocean, faint flashes of light bouncing off waves. Hartman murmured, They're closing in. Then faintly a new sound came through the speakers, a rhythmic ping, deep and slow, like sonar echoing through water. Reyes frowned. What's that? Chen's eyes narrowed. That's not us. The ping grew louder, sharper. Each pulse came closer than the last. And then the drone's feeds distorted again, just for a second, before clearing to reveal something massive moving beneath the ship's hull. West whispered, What the hell is that? Chen's voice was quiet, almost reverent. Proof. Beneath the waves, something had awakened. Not just a machine, but a warning from an operation buried years ago. And for the first time that night, Admiral West realized this wasn't just about a breach. It was about a secret that was never meant to resurface. The low hum of the interceptors faded into the static hiss of the ocean feed. Every pair of eyes in the operations room stayed glued to the screen, where the grainy drone footage trembled from turbulence. Beneath the black waves, something vast and slow moved like a shadow. No hull markings, no sonar signature, no IFF ping. Lieutenant Reyes swallowed hard. Sir, contact beneath the Prosperity stars. It's big. Subsurface displacement suggests... Chen cut him off quietly. Classified tonnage. I know that silhouette. Hartman turned toward him. How could you possibly know that? That design doesn't match any active vessel. Chen didn't look away from the display. Because it's not active. It was decommissioned 9 years ago under Operation Nightglass. The name hit like a dropped tool in silence. West frowned, his voice sharp. There is no record of that operation. There isn't supposed to be. Chen replied, calm but cold. And if what we're seeing is real, someone just resurrected a ghost ship from it. The feed flickered, the drone cameras cutting between frames of the Prosperity star and the dark outline below it. For a second, the shadow's shape solidified. A long hull, angular plating, and the unmistakable heat bloom of submerged engines. Reyes's voice trembled. Sir, it's surfacing. The command room lights dimmed automatically as the sensors recalibrated. On screen, a dark mass rose from the depths, water cascading off its sides. Then came the crest of a fin-like antenna array breaking the surface, dripping with salt. West stepped back. That's impossible. Chen's tone didn't change. That ship was part of a covert recovery fleet meant to retrieve experimental warheads lost in the mid-Pacific. It vanished before the program shut down. Hartman stared at him. You were part of that? Chen nodded once. I commanded the encryption architecture for its fleet link. Before the division was erased, Reyes's voice came low, awed. Sir, this is your operation. Chen's eyes hardened. Was, until someone decided to wake it up. The radio crackled with a drone operator's voice. Echo wing approaching target perimeter. Visual confirmed submerged vessel identified. Awaiting strike protocol. West leaned toward the mic. Hold position. Do not engage. That's an order. Chen didn't move. If you hold them now, Admiral, you'll lose the link. Whoever reactivated that sub is pulling data straight from the Prosperity Stars network. Commander, West snapped. You are not giving orders here. Chen turned, voice steady but cutting through the room like steel. Then give the right ones. Silence. The sound of the ocean feed filled the gap between words. Low, relentless, a mechanical heartbeat from the abyss. Reyes looked between them, uncertain. Sir, data spikes are hitting every 2 seconds. It's pulling fleet access logs. Hartman's tone was grim. That means whoever's down there can see our Pacific command structure. West's shoulders sagged. For the first time all night, his confidence looked thin. You can stop it? Chen's eyes didn't leave the glowing map. If I still have clearance. Hartman frowned. You don't. Chen's reply was quiet. Not officially. He stepped forward, typing a short sequence into the console. The system beeped once, then another window opened on the main screen, a dark blue interface none of them recognized. Lines of code cascaded upward like rain. Reyes's breath caught. Sir, what is that? Chen's tone was controlled, precise. Omega-3 clearance, fleet override network, built for one purpose, containment. West's eyes widened. That level of access is restricted to... Chen finally looked at him. Fleet command. The room froze. For a long second, no one breathed. West whispered, You're bluffing. Chen entered the final authorization manually. The console beeped 3 times, then a deep system tone rolled through the speakers. Low, resonant, undeniable. Reyes read the text flashing across the display. Access granted, authorization, Fleet Commander, Pacific Special Operations. Every person in the room stood motionless. Even West. Chen's voice stayed steady. Lock onto the submerged vessel. Initiate secure transfer quarantine. Reyes obeyed without hesitation. His hands trembled, but the motion was sure. Transmission isolated, feed contained. On screen, the red pulse slowed, flickering once before stabilizing into a calm blue grid. The breach had stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Chen exhaled quietly and stepped back from the console. It's contained. For now. West finally spoke, his voice quieter than anyone had ever heard it. Who are you, really? Chen looked at him for a long moment. Someone who stopped being asked that question a long time ago. He turned to the others. Get ready for contact. The people who reactivated that sub aren't done yet. The breach was sealed, but the ghosts it awakened were not. And when dawn finally came, they wouldn't just uncover who had broken their systems. They'd learn why the fleet commander himself had been buried with them. Morning crept in slowly, painting thin streaks of gold across the concrete walls of Naval Command South Bay. The storm had passed, but the tension hadn't. The room that had spent all night in chaos now sat under a heavy silence, one that no one dared to break. Reyes sat at his console, eyes half open, caffeine buzzing through his veins. He'd been awake for almost 20 hours, but his mind wouldn't slow down. The red alerts were gone. The breach was contained, but the name on the authorization screen still burned behind his eyelids. Fleet Commander, Pacific Special Operations. He looked across the operations table where Admiral Samuel Chen stood, arms folded, watching the sonar grid with quiet intensity. His uniform was still plain, no medals, no rank insignia, but the authority around him felt absolute. West entered the room last. The same man who had mocked Chen 12 hours earlier now looked like a shadow of that version of himself, his voice lower, his posture heavier. The eyes that once glinted with arrogance now carried something else. Confusion, and maybe a trace of shame. Fleet Command, he said finally. The words barely left his throat. That title. No one in this room even knew it existed. Chen didn't turn. It's not a title, Admiral. It's a burden. One I never planned to pick back up. Hartman broke the silence next. Sir, we've confirmed containment on the breach, but the submerged vessel hasn't transmitted again. It's just sitting under the Prosperity Star. Chen nodded once. Waiting. West frowned. For what? Chen turned now, his gaze level and unreadable. For confirmation. The kind that doesn't come through channels, it comes through silence. The Admiral's brow furrowed. You think they're testing us? Chen's voice dropped, calm but grave. Not us. Me. The words hit the room like a pressure wave. Reyes blinked. Sir, why you? Chen looked at the young officer, eyes steady. Because I built the firewall they're trying to break. And the people behind this aren't after data, they're after the person who can still stop them. Hartman leaned over the table. Sir, with respect, that sounds like a warning, Chen finished. The same one we ignored 9 years ago. He walked toward the center console, pulling up archived files, faded documents marked classified. Phoenix Division. The screen's light glowed against his face. The Night Glass fleet went down with 600 men aboard. Officially, it was written off as a mechanical failure. Unofficially, he hesitated. We cut our own link to stop what they were carrying from spreading. West's voice sharpened. You're telling me this is fallout from your old operation? Chen nodded slowly. We buried the network, the encryption, the whole division. Or so I thought. Someone dug it up, reactivated the code, and used your base to run it. Reyes's voice trembled. Sir, how deep does this go? Chen looked at him. Deep enough that what's on that ship could rewrite every defense protocol in the Pacific. The words chilled the room. West stepped closer, his tone quieter now. You could have told me sooner. Chen's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in fatigue. You wouldn't have believed me. You needed to see it. For a long second, West didn't answer. Then he did something no one expected. He straightened his back and said, Then I'm seeing it now. Chen regarded him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Then we moved together. The tension eased slightly. Orders followed. The base came alive again, but this time the noise was different, efficient, measured, united. The mockery that once filled these halls was gone. Reyes approached Chen quietly. Sir, what happens when they realize we shut them out? Chen glanced at the horizon through the wide windows. The sun had risen fully now, lighting the sea in sheets of silver. They'll try again, he said simply. And next time they won't hide behind a ship. West folded his arms, his tone lower, calmer. Then we'll be ready. Chen gave him the faintest hint of a smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. You will be, but readiness was only part of it. Because somewhere beneath the calm waves that silent vessel still waited, and so did the truth it carried. A truth Admiral Chen had buried once before and now had no choice but to face again. The storm had cleared by dawn, leaving the Pacific stretched out like glass under a pale blue sky. Naval Command South Bay was silent except for the sound of helicopter blades cutting across the horizon. Crews moved in organized rhythm across the tarmac, guiding the last rescue birds back to their bays. What had started as chaos 24 hours earlier had become something else entirely. Precision, unity, and a rare kind of quiet that comes only after everyone has seen the edge and returned. Fleet Commander Samuel Chen stepped down from the final helicopter, boots hitting the wet pavement. His flight suit was streaked with salt and oil, the kind of wear that told stories no metal ever could. He carried his helmet under one arm, and his calm expression underlined by exhaustion that didn't show in his stride. Waiting near the hangar doors was Rear Admiral Marcus West, standing stiffly, cap in hand. He wasn't the man he had been the day before. The confidence was still there, but now it carried something steadier. Respect, the kind that isn't demanded but earned the hard way. When Chen approached, West started to speak, but his voice caught. Admiral, Chen stopped him with a quiet shake of the head. You acted on what you knew, he said softly. Now act on what you've learned. There was no judgment in his tone, no pride either, just the calm weight of truth. West lowered his gaze, then nodded once. Understood. The air smelled of jet fuel and rain. For a long moment, the two men stood facing each other. Not as rivals, not as ranks, but as men who had both carried command and its cost. Across the landing strip, Lieutenant Reyes stood at attention, clipboard under his arm. He'd been awake through the entire operation, and it showed in the tightness of his shoulders. But when Chen's eyes met his, Reyes straightened. Good work, Lieutenant, Chen said quietly. Reyes hesitated. Sir, I just followed orders. Chen gave the faintest nod. That's what leadership looks like, knowing which orders to follow. Before Reyes could reply, a voice called out from the observation platform. Fleet Command. All intercept units confirmed safe return. Chen turned toward the crew, his voice steady but warm. Then today we count it as victory. Without noise, without losses, no one cheered. They didn't need to. The silence that followed was the kind that meant everyone understood. West exhaled, his voice rough. You changed this place. Chen looked back at him. No, he said quietly. The people here changed when they stopped performing and started serving. The words hit harder than any reprimand ever could. Later that morning, a small ceremony took place in the same briefing room where everything had begun. No photographers, no speeches, just a handful of officers standing in a semicircle while Chen presented a single commendation medal to Lieutenant Reyes. You didn't perform, Chen said, pinning the medal to the young officer's chest. You delivered. Reyes didn't answer. He just nodded, eyes sharp with pride he didn't have to hide. At the back of the room, West stood quietly, his hands clasped behind his back. When the metal pin caught the light, he raised his chin slightly, watching, listening, remembering every word of the briefing he had once treated like theater. When the ceremony ended, he approached Chen again. Permission to speak freely, sir? Chen looked at him. Granted. West hesitated, then spoke quietly. You didn't humiliate me yesterday, Admiral. You taught me something I'd forgotten. That rank doesn't make you right. Responsibility does. Chen studied him for a long moment, then said, Then carry it well. West nodded once and came to attention. His right hand rose slowly, forming a crisp salute. The sound of his boots shifting echoed softly in the quiet room as every officer followed his lead. Chen returned the salute once, firm and brief. At ease, he said quietly. As he turned to leave, the morning light caught the metal bracelet on his wrist. The same phoenix etched into silver, wings rising through waves. A relic of a unit that never officially existed, and a reminder of every storm that had shaped him. Outside, the flight line shimmered under sunlight. Crews moved with quiet purpose. No slogans, no noise, just work done right. Reyes stood at the window, watching as Chen walked across the tarmac toward his transport. Sir, he said softly, almost to himself, he doesn't need the stage. West, standing beside him, answered in a low voice, That's because he already earned the echo. They watched as Chen climbed aboard the waiting aircraft. The engine started with a low hum, rising into a steady roar. When the plane lifted, the wind rippled across the flags lining the hangar, clean, precise, and bright against the sky. And in that moment, everyone on that base understood what leadership really meant. It wasn't about being loud. It wasn't about being seen. It was about standing calm when everyone else panicked, about leading from the silence, not above it. As the aircraft disappeared into the horizon, Reyes exhaled and whispered, That's how legends walk away. He arrived without medals, left without ceremony, and changed everything in between. Because real command doesn't shout. It simply leaves the room quieter than it found it.